Great. Welcome, everyone, to today's edition of the Artificial Intelligence in Education Community of Interest, sponsored by the World Bank, by the EdTech Hub, and by a whole set of partners, many of whom are represented here today. We have lots of people filing in the way that we do these things online in these webinars, online discussion formats. So we'll give people another 45 seconds or so to join us. And while we do that, we'd like to remind people to, if somehow you are able to unmute yourself and not supposed to, please go back and mute. We welcome people to introduce themselves in the chat. We will make great use of the chat function during the session, as we do in all cases. You can start by introducing yourself. Also, feel free to share links to information about your interests, about the program you work for, about the tool you're developing, about the research you're doing. We welcome all of that in the chat. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Verna Labahari, the Executive Director of the EdTech Hub, to welcome us to today's conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you all for joining us. Oh my goodness, we already have 66 people on the call. So I encourage you to do exactly what Mike said and introduce yourselves in the chat function. So thank you all for joining us. Welcome. I'm so pleased to be part of the second convening of the Community of Interest. Unfortunately, I missed the first one. And for those of you who don't know me again, I'm Verna Lalbihari. I'm the Executive Director for the EdTech Hub. And we exist to really help close evidence gaps and provide guidance to decision makers on, those who are considering how technology can support and move the needle on student learning. So it's no surprise then, of course, that with the critical focus on AI, that we have recently launched the AI Observatory and Action Lab. And you will learn a little bit more about that as we go along. We're really pleased to collaborate and partner with our colleagues at the World Bank on this community of interest and really want to use this as a platform for discourse, to stimulate conversation, to learn with you all and from you all, and also to create a platform for deeper engagement around some of the challenges and opportunities that are emerging with regards to AI. Our session today, again, is focused on the role of the teacher in the age of AI. And I have to be honest and say that we recently have come out of what we call our horizon scanning process. And this was actually one of the, hotly debated topics and areas of interest on our horizon scan. We're also finding that teachers are often absent from the conversation and the discourse. So really pleased to have on the panel with us teachers, and I'm hoping that there are some teachers in the audience as well who could share your experiences with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn things back over to Mike, but really just want to underscore our appreciation for you joining the discourse today, and really keen to jump in and learn from our panelists and you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Verna. As Verna said, I'm Mike Turcano. I'll help to herd the cats here today, and a great discussion. I see so many names that I recognize in the chat already from people I know or people whose work I admire. In some cases, those are one and the same. I see people from all over the world, from Rwanda, from Uganda, from Ireland, from the States, from Mexico, from Norway, from Bangladesh. It's great to have so many perspectives represented here today. We're going to focus on a core set of 4 perspectives, 4 people from 4 institutions, but you're welcome to use the chat not only to introduce yourself, but to share information about your group and maybe the research or the project, the tool that you're working with. I'd like to start today, and following up on what Verna said, about so much interest in the use of AI chatbots for education, and it's the new thing. It's the great thing, and I think while we're all student-centric in our approach to education, we all, I would imagine, maybe not, feel that right next to that student is a teacher, and teacher is also fundamental to the teaching and learning process. But much of the dialogue around the use of AI chatbots in education has been about replacing the teacher, or what if the teacher's not there? Today, we want to explore what the use of these tools means for the teacher and for teaching. and for learning in a whole set of environments around the world. I'd like to start in asking to Vicky Subovic from Khan Academy. Vicky, could you tell us a little bit about sort of what you're working on at Khan Academy with Khanmigo, probably one of the, maybe the most famous AI chatbot in education around the world, what you're doing, who you're doing it for, and how you see it related to the work of a teacher.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be here. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We launched Khanmigo a little over 2 years ago in March 2023. The initial launch was in the US, and we've expanded that outside the US recently. Today, we have 1.8 million users across the globe using Khanmigo, and they are a combination of teachers and their students. We really built Khanmigo to be two things. The first thing we did was we built it as a teacher's assistant, not as a teacher's replacement. The second thing we did was we built it as an on-demand tutor for students. It's anchored on all of the content that exists in Khan Academy that's been built over 20 years. So it's utilizing that established, rigorous, high-quality, standards-aligned content, as well as pulling from the LLM. But primarily what we've learned is that we wanted to build an AI feature only if it was going to solve problems that we already were seeing in schools and classrooms that teachers were trying to solve and kids were struggling to solve. And that's why we chose the teaching assistant and the tutor as opposed to any other use case. Who's using it? As I said, 1.8 million people across the globe. The student-facing part of Khanmigo is being deployed in school districts across multiple countries. So we're partnering with school systems to make Khanmigo as a tutor available to students. The teacher tools, Khanmigo as a teaching assistant, is available on Khan Academy for free in 50 countries across the globe. And so those teacher tools are available and free for access to any teacher in those countries. And so they're the people who are using it. And it's roughly the 1.8 million, it's roughly half and half students, half teachers.
Excellent. Thank you, Vicky, for that introduction to Khanmigo, or reintroduction for many people. I'd like to now invite Hannah Horn-Robinson from Rising Academy to talk about, I imagine to talk about Rory and to talk about what they're doing with AI chatbots, for whom, why they're doing it, and the role of the teacher in that process.
Actually, it's quite exciting. We're building 2 different chatbots at the moment. So you mentioned Rory, which is all about helping students with math. And at the moment, we're focused on students in sub-Saharan Africa, approximately those from grades 4 to 9 who have maybe a lot of gaps in their knowledge, but not a lot of access to other EdTech products. So we're really trying to build something that has a high-tech back end, but a low-tech front end. So students can engage with Rory on WhatsApp on very basic smartphones. But then talking about teachers, we saw a need to support them further. So we're also building a chatbot we're calling Tari that teachers can then use on WhatsApp as well to get advice on planning their lessons, classroom management, English pronunciation, all sorts of different things. That's very teacher-led, that we're seeing what's on the ground that teachers might need that we could provide in this format. And similar to Vicky, we're not trying to put AI everywhere that we can think of. We're really trying to look at what do users need in this area that we can maybe solve some of these problems in a way that's, affordable and scalable in this context.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Hannah. And please do continue to post information in the chat. That's great. I'd like to also now turn it over to Michael Leventhal to talk about, Michael's with Robots Mali. He's going to talk about some of the work of the AI for D lab. I believe that he's working with and exploring what it means to use some of these tools and maybe what it doesn't mean as well in the context of education in Mali. Michael, what are you working on and why?
Thank you, Mike. Let me first say something about the context of where we're working. We're in Mali, West African country, in the Francophone zone, but we're we're an extremely challenged country in terms of our educational system. We have one of the lowest rates of literacy in the world. So we're very focused on solutions for that kind of context. We've been doing AI in Mali since 2016. So actually before chatbots really existed or were the tools that they are today. And we're very focused on language. And we do most of our work to make AI tools and chatbots work in Bambara, which is a transnational language. It's the language that most Malians speak. And it's not French. That is the de facto language in Mali. It's Bambara. Yet our educational system is still French. And our assessment is that is one of the primary causes why we have such low educational outcomes. French language has just never really worked for Malians. They've never embraced French. Okay. We are working on a bunch of different stuff. One of the things we focused on initially, so our work is much harder in a way because we are working in so-called low resource language. So chatbots are constructed out of all the knowledge that's out there basically on the internet, on the web, and that is to a huge extent in English. Secondarily in other major languages, and almost not at all in African languages. So making these tools work in African languages is a lot of work. And our work is mainly in an early phase. We do the things that can work now, and we start building for when things will work better in the future. So we've done generation of content in Bambara. So educational materials, stuff that largely didn't exist before, based around ChatGPT and other AI tools. And we've created a pretty large library of materials in Bambara, publicly accessible. We also use Claude AI. Claude AI is one of the first LLMs, chatbots that started to speak Bambara reasonably well. And we're using that in different kinds of content generation tasks. We're working on a writing assistant. So one of the issues with African languages in general is they're predominantly oral. So using them as written languages provides challenges for the speakers of those languages. So we're using Gemini, and we're creating a writing assistant that would help children and older people to develop writing skills in Bambara and to write text. And something that's in a very, very early phase, but we're very focused on multimodal aspects of learning. So we're working on a teacher's assistant that would be based on generative AI and use speech and video, even music, as well as text, but really focusing on oral aspects of use of the language. We do a lot of work in voice recognition, so systems that can understand and speak Bambara. So that's not a chatbot per se, but is increasingly used with chatbots. That's a big part of our work as well. And we're continuing to try to improve text translation and text generation with transformers. Teachers have been involved in everything we've done. So we're actually don't really see education without teachers. So we've had teachers generating content, teachers using our tools in the field. And we don't, at this moment, if we have a personalized solution, a personalized chatbot, it would be our writing assistant, because we can see that as a solitary activity, but most things in education are not, in our view.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. Yeah, indeed, there's a wealth of variety of different tools and approaches, affordances hype and challenges associated with a whole set of this, I would say, class of applications that have AI and of some sort inside. Teachers, we have a teacher with us today, Maxwell Kayasi, who is in Kenya. He's a head of technology. He's a physics teacher as well, a senior chief Kwananga Girls High School. He also founds and directs a Center for ICT and Education Resource Network there. Maxwell, could you talk to us a little bit about your experience in using or your experience in supporting students as they use some of these AI tools and AI chatbots? What works and what doesn't?
Thank you so much, Mike, for this opportunity. Hi, everyone. Maxwell here. As a teacher in 21st century, where a lot is changing, especially the role of the teacher, coming from the teacher being the only source of information to now where we have all these solutions that can help learners to learn. AI is revolutionizing the role of the teacher in the classroom, looking at it from the point that it's not going to replace the teacher. Rather, it's going to evolve the role of the teacher from being an instructor to a facilitator, where now you need to guide the learners on how to ethically use the AI in the classroom. You need to guide even other teachers on how to use the available resources in terms of AI to plan their work, to efficiently come up with the lesson guides, lesson plans, and even a scheme so that the teachers can have more time for learning purposes. More of the scenarios that are emerging in the current dispensation, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where we have very high teacher-learner ratios, where a teacher is handling a class of about 90 learners at a go, you find that teaching is not effective. So how can we take the opportunity of AI to be able to improve the learning outcomes? How can we help the learners to have more personalized learning in terms of accessing resources that probably maybe the teacher would not have delved into while in the classroom? We're also looking at a scenario whereby we are going to bring in the aspect of assisting learners with special needs. Many a times, the teachers would always move with the fast-paced learners and leave out the learners who are time takers. So what happens when a learner in class did not get the concept the teacher was talking about? With the emergence of AI tutors and say chatbots, as we are talking about them, you find that learners can still learn beyond the formal teaching learning hours. So when the teacher is not in class after, let's say, school, learners can still proceed with learning and gain up where they had not gotten the teacher while in the classroom. We're also talking about issues to do with reduced workloads for the teacher. AI tools are revolutionary in terms of helping to ease the burden on the teacher. Things like designing assessments. AI can now be able to, within a click of a button, design an assessment and even grade those assessments for the teacher. What does that and help the teacher with? The teacher has now more time to concentrate on the real deal of teaching and learning. And you find that teachers who embrace AI are going to be revolutionary in terms of their pedagogy. So I'm really very much excited about this and being on the forefront of advocating for modern technology in classroom. I'm really excited to contribute to this. Of course, there are challenges, especially the mindset around the teachers, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. Mike, you already mentioned something. Do the teachers feel that in the emergence of AI, they're going to be replaced? No, AI cannot replace the teacher because we still have the AI is a tool. It lacks the empathy. It lacks the emotional attachment to learning. But you see, with the teacher there to guide and contextualize AI, you find that it's going to bring up more meaningful learning for our learners. Challenges to do with the skeptical of data security for the learners who are interacting with the AI. Who is in control of that data? Those are things that we need to be speaking about. Issues to do with teachers, probably digital divide, for example. yeah, in so many sub-Saharan schools, infrastructure is still a problem. Connectivity is still a challenge. So why are we talking about AI? And we have schools that don't even have access to power. We have schools that don't even have the digital learning devices. So those are things that as we forge a policy going forward, we need to address as we talk about AI. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much, Maxwell. Hannah, listening to Maxwell talk about teachers providing guidance or helping providing context and support for students. How does what Maxwell just said, how does it resonate with your experience with Rising Academies, with Roy, use of other chatbots? How does what he say, does it resonate? Are some of the challenges that he mentioned, are they challenges that you're finding, or are there other ones?
100%. Like, we have really designed Rory from the beginning with teachers in the room, getting them to test it out, asking them how we can improve, getting feedback from them every day. And then we really love to see that teachers are keen to use Rory with their students. And we see that the best sessions happen, especially when there's a math teacher in the room who can go around and help students when they struggle. But it allows a classroom of 90 or 100 students to actually get individualized practice and really learn at their own level. But I definitely agree around some of the challenges. We were just talking about a school earlier today that doesn't have electricity, and can we get electricity to them so that we can do a pilot of Rory in their school? So there's lots of challenges just to make these sort of chatbots accessible to students in lower resource areas. But once we get there, we do find that there is a lot of interest in things like bridging this digital divide, bringing devices to students, getting them to learn how to type on a phone. All the different aspects of learning WhatsApp, for example, is a skill set that we didn't start with the intention of teaching, but it's helping students in so many different ways as we face some of these challenges that Maxwell is bringing up.
Thank you so much, Hannah. And Hannah dropped in the chat also some links to one of the chatbots that they've been building, a Rory, and you can actually use it within WhatsApp, and it's actually an interesting process. I find in many cases in talking with folks who talk about AI, and they don't have maybe haven't used the tools themselves. And there's a quick way to use the tool by just texting something to that WhatsApp number that you may be interested in trying. Vicky, how does following up on what Hannah just talked about, in the context of Conmigo, how are you seeing teachers in the environment where teachers are teaching? How do they allocate time of student? Like, how much of the time are students with their own personalized devices, their own personalized learning experience, and how do teachers coordinate and orchestrate that function, and at what point do they say yes, and at what point do they say no?
Oh, they say yes and no all the time, Mike. As you know, teachers are very independent thinkers, and anybody who thinks that they've got one way of getting them to do something hasn't been in a school for a while. We work at the district level, both in the US, in Brazil, in India. We're doing pilots of Conmigo and Khan Academy in Brazil and India at the moment, but we see some commonalities. The first thing is that we are very fortunate that we've been around for almost 20 years. We've been providing a free computer-assisted learning program for almost 20 years to millions of people and millions of teachers. So we began this work building on a very strong foundation of trust amongst teachers. Because Khan Academy was built for two groups of people, right? Students and teachers. There were teacher tools built from the very beginning because Sal was the first teacher. He was tutoring his cousins. He needed some tools to keep track of them all. So that was inherent in the very first versions of Khan Academy, and that's continued to be the case. So first thing, we had a lot of trust, so that was a big step up for us. Second thing is we've been working with teachers, millions of teachers across the globe for almost 20 years. And let me tell you, they are not shy about telling you what's working and not working in your platform. They email us, they give us in-product feedback, they get in touch with our customer service folks, all of that good stuff. So we have gobs of data about what we were doing well and what we were doing poorly. And so when we started designing, we had access to teachers where we could actually put in front of them a prototype. Check this out. Is this going to work? Yes, no, maybe. And that was the kind of, shoulder to shoulder design work that we're doing with teachers. What we were less comfortable with, who we knew less, was administrators, your principal, your instructional leader. We were not built, we didn't have anything for that person for 20 years. So we've built that out starting in 2019. And so we've been learning a lot about who that person is, what do they do, how do they work, and how do they use these tools, right, to drive learning for students. So I couldn't agree more with what Hannah and Maxwell and Michael are saying, is that at least in our cases, right, we are so close to the classroom, all of us, that we're very fortunate to have that collaborative co-design happening. I understand why people don't think this is true, because it isn't true in a lot of other parts of the EdTech field. And so I think we're probably less capable of speaking to that, right? Because we're not in those organizations. So what we do with Conmigo specifically is that we're providing very specific training to the teaching force of our partners. It's my belief that when you bring AI into a school, you bring it into the town square of that community. This is the place where a large number of the general public are going to have their first experience of this technology, was going to be through their child, through their child's teacher, through their child's principal, the grandparent, the auntie, all of these people are involved in the school, and they're going to get access to this technology through their student, through their family member. So if we're serious about this, we think that this technology is going to transform our lives in the way that the internet has done, then we have to invest in training, paid training for teachers, for educational leaders across the globe. I mean, I think that is a really, really important policy recommendation that we should all be really working hard to achieve.
Thank you, Vicki. Michael, so how would you respond to what Vicki's talking about? How does that resonate with the context and environment you're working with in Mali, and how does it not? I will note that I'm happy to see a number of great voices adding information to the chat, some discordant. That's great as well. And I don't know, does what Vicki say, is it relevant? And if so, how and how not in the context of Mali where you're working?
It's highly relevant, but let me say that we see a risk. We see quite a big risk. We also see opportunity, and on the positive side, I think, like our work with teachers, the teachers love to introduce technology. It is helping them a lot, and it solves some of our really hard resource problems, like classrooms with 80 or 100 kids. There is no such thing as individual feedback in a question in a situation like that. So even the material problems, like we don't have electricity in a classroom, we don't have connectivity, we don't have devices. We actually see those things as being solved. Like kids, a lot of kids have smartphones now, and they're pretty good at using them. They're better than the teachers. So the teacher training is really a big issue for us. We maybe have a harder time getting the teachers comfortable with the technology than with the kids. Okay, but the risk for us, I'd say first, on the language issue, that, as I said, we work in African languages, and AI is so powerful that this could be an extinction event for African cultures and African languages. Okay, because the fact is that all the data used to create chatbots is in English, and chatbots, you can say in a way, they think in English, and they can, to some extent, output in other languages. The cultural bias. So we've done a lot of work in content generation and creating content that reflects African cultures, not just the language, but the way people are represented, the way people talk, the way people think, the way they solve problems. it is extremely hard to get a chatbot to do those things. So there's a lot of teams throughout the continent, ours and others, that are trying to deal with this problem. But it's kind of a tiny scale of effort with the resources that we have. Whereas in the English-speaking domain, things are increasing exponentially. It's like we're trying to get to a basic level where we can have these tools in the languages that children speak, that we use in our countries. But I don't know if it's going to happen. I can't say that it's going to happen. And because of the power of these tools, the end result may be that there is just no education and no use and no logic to preserving our cultures or preserving our languages, continuing to use them. These are languages spoken by, 100 million people, 200 million people. Our language group, 50 million people. That would be quite a loss.
Thank you, Michael. Indeed, it would be quite a loss. And I would encourage people also to post questions in the Q&A function in Zoom. And I think Vicky will respond to one from Senegal, from Samba Guissé, about French. But before we go to that, I would like to ask Maxwell, this context that Michael's talking about, the language context and the potential, we're talking about in some cases in Kenya, we're talking about importing tools from somewhere else, trained on, if not language, because English is spoken in Kenya together with Kiswahili and a number of other languages, trained on cultural experiences, norms, and history from other places. How do you see the challenge of teachers working with these tools that were built elsewhere, maybe for other contexts or imagined contexts? How do you see, what are some of the practical day-to-day challenges for you and the teachers with whom you work in Kenya in trying to use these tools or trying to support teachers, student use of these tools?
Yeah, definitely. Any technology intervention that leaves out the teacher as a key player is not going to kickstart. We have challenges, especially when it comes to having, let me put it in quotes, a foreign technology being imposed in the Kenyan context. There will be no ownership, definitely. And even if probably the government and or other educational stakeholders will want to impose it on the local teachers, you find that there is defiance right from the start, which should not be the case. So ideally, any technology intervention, including AI and chatbots and tutors, should have the teacher at the core when it comes to the design, when it comes to the implementation. Let us cultivate a sense of ownership from the beginning, because teachers are the ones who are spending more time with the students than even the parents. And therefore, if the teachers are not involved from the beginning of even the design phase, it needs assessment phase, then when you're designing your technology and you've left out the teacher, it becomes very tricky for the teacher to adopt it and use it effectively in the classroom. Of course, the essence of contextualization, what Michael has talked about, I'm liking the idea that you're working with chatbots that can now even reason and respond in the local language. You find that in Kenya alone, we have about 52 tribes or thereabout. Yeah. So if you're going to design a chatbot in, let's say, English is our second language. All these people in the country have their first language as their mother tongue. So what happens? There are cultural diversities that need to be addressed. And you find that the designers of these tools, if they are biased without taking into consideration the cultural context in the country or where the tools are intended to be used, it leaves out, it brings a more or less a secondary gap that is going now to diminish the gains of the way of living of a people, to now telling them to adopt another way of life. So I think from the onset, we need to have the design of these chatbots, taking into context the cultural backgrounds of where the audience is, what it intends to achieve, so that we can have a sense of ownership as people get to know and learn to use these resources. They know this, they have a sense of belonging of the solution.
Thank you, Maxwell. And I'm struck by the diversity of the folks in the chat bot. It's great to see you, Joseph, who's doing some similar types of work in Uganda, exploring it. I think Vriti Saraf has posed a question talking about, sounds like we're talking about AI enhancing what teachers are already doing. And Vriti's actually, what will actually change? Or what do you see changing? And is that change a good thing or a bad thing? Or is it just a change that we're going to have to cope with, and if so, how? Maybe I'll go to Vicky. Maybe as in the process of responding to that, maybe also you could respond to a question that Samba Gise asked about, well, French and Francophone countries' use of some of these AI tools.
Yeah, let me just quickly answer or make a suggestion about that. That was in the Q&A. First off, I think it is incredibly important that everybody on this call, if you haven't already, sets up an account on whatever it is you want to try, right? ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever it is, Conmigo, Rory, Tari, whatever, you need to get in there and start using it, right? Because we are so at the very beginning of this journey. And to Maxwell's point, we have to be part of it. And to be part of it, we have to know what we're talking about, and we've got to use it and try it and understand the limits and the potential and the whole thing. So just one plug there. And what we've seen is that we use OpenAI's GPT-4 and Mini, and it does quite well in French. But you're the expert. You've got to get in there and test these things out and see whether they're doing what you want them and need them to do. That's number one. So number two, the role of the teacher and what's going on. We cannot underestimate that we are in the very first steps in this journey, and the technology is changing rapidly, but it is at its infancy. And so for teachers right now, we made the decision that we were going to only build something that was solving a problem that currently exists today for a teacher, or solving a problem that currently exists today for a student, versus building something that could, completely reimagine the classroom. Because there's a lot of dead carcasses on the road called reimagine the classroom, reimagine school. There's a lot of dead carcasses there. And we didn't really feel like we needed to tread that again. So we've got to really think about where we are in this adoption curve and where we are in terms of getting access to this technology for a lot of people who traditionally have not had access to this technology this early in its development. And we've got to roll our sleeves up and start using it and getting that feedback, right? And bringing groups of teachers and educators together to discuss this, to learn from one another, and then to be talking to the providers of these tools. There is a way to build your own chatbot, right? Your GPTs. Each of the big companies have ways of doing this. And I encourage people that when you're ready to start doing that, to build your own technology, because that is the way that you're going to find out, like, can this be culturally responsive? Is this possible? And if not, why not? And then you're speaking to the technologists, having come from a place where you've really kicked the tires on this. Because I think that is what I have learned. I'm not a technologist, I'm an educator. I started at Khan Academy. I didn't know how to spell SQL when I started. And I'm not going to become a coder, but I know now how to talk to them about what is and is not working. And so that is a really important, no one else is going to do this, right? It's going to be the people on this call who are going to do this. And that's what we've got to all do together.
Thank you very much, Vicky. And I would second, I imagine, with everyone, to just get in and try this stuff. I'll be with a number of education ministers next week talking about AI use in education. And one of the first things I'll be asking folks is, how are you getting your fingernails dirty? And how are you engaging with this stuff? Because we see education ministries around the world, we see teachers unions around the world thinking about what sort of guidance should we offer to our system, to our members. and offering that guidance absent some personal experience is a tough way to proceed. Hannah, how do you see the role of teachers changing, even if we're still in the infancy, as Vicky mentioned? Maxwell mentioned one way, potential, hopefully a way, teachers' role is to get teachers involved in the design process of some of these tools. You know, even if it's not user-centered design, at least user-informed design, that would be one potential way for a teacher's role to change. We've had a challenge with that in the EdTech space for decades, but it's certainly good practice. How else do you see the role of teacher changing with the use of some of the tools that you are supporting and experimenting with?
Well, you can see I was nodding along to everything Vicky said. There's so many things still coming down the pipeline that could, again, change things. So we are trying to focus mostly on the present, have a little bit of a future view, and think about those challenges that are coming. I think the folks in the question and answer section are correct that a lot of what we're doing is trying to enhance teachers, because we don't want to replace them. We don't want them to feel like they are not involved. We want to be expert-led, not only AI powered or tech led. We want to be all about the teachers, and we're very lucky at Rising. We are in an educational organization already, and Rory was built off of a radio program built during COVID. So we have started from the ground up, focusing on education and continuing from there. I think with Rory, though, the big change at the moment is not changing the teacher's role, but adding to it. So a lot of the teachers we see are very used to the sage on the stage method, where they're giving a lecture to a very large class. And we hope that our Rory sessions are then supplemental to those large lecture classes. But it means that the teacher has to act a little bit differently in those sessions, more like a facilitator, walking around and helping the students who need it, and enabling that like one-to-one teaching at the right level sort of instructional time. And this is sometimes a challenge for teachers. It's not what they're used to. It can be very nerve-wracking if every student is working on a different math topic and could ask you any kind of question at any time. You really need to be confident in your math abilities to be able to support those students well. And that's where we then start adding in something like Tari to say, okay, we're seeing these gaps, we're seeing these challenges. How can we then better support teachers in this new environment that we're talking about, where they might not be teaching in the way that they're always used to? So trying to support in that change and improve what they're already doing, and enhance by adding a little bit of like a new method onto that as well.
Thanks, Hannah. Michael, if I may ask you, so one of the things that we've heard, or one of the promises made, is that some of the use of these tools will save time and save money. These are questions of, is this really true? In the context you're working, is that the case? Do we need additional investments to be made to have the enabling environment for teachers and students to use these tools? And if so, you know, what might they be? We in the chat, somebody posted a link to the very useful the framework for teachers that UNESCO put together on AI competency and literacy. That's great. So sometimes Vicky talked about training for teachers. There need to be additional investments to do this. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the enabling environment for the use of these tools in Mali? What indeed we can substitute for, what actually we need to do more of, if we think these tools have relevant use?
If I may,
yeah.
Just would love to respond to a couple of things that have been said, but I'll get to time and money. Okay, so just I think starting with Maxwell, in AI development, we call the process human in the loop. And whether you're training an AI system or whether you're implementing a chatbot and you're designing how that works in a classroom. So we have to do human in the loop, because the performance of chatbots and other AI systems with African languages is not dependable. So we kind of need a human supervisor almost at all times. But I think that same principle applies. Designing a system used in the classroom, the teacher is that human in the loop, and really ensuring the best educational experience. I want to suggest we're called Robots Mali. We've been doing robotics for a lot of years, and many of the AI experts are talking about how the merging of AI and robotics is kind of going to be the next wave for large language models, chatbots, and many other uses of AI. And it basically means integrating physical inputs, okay, being aware of the environment that you're in. So imagine this kind of next chatbot that's a sort of robot in the classroom, and it's like another student, or it's a teaching assistant, and it's aware of the students in the room, of the interactions that are taking place. It can follow a discussion. It's aware of the teacher, what the teacher's doing. It's really the thing that chatbots don't do now, that educators do every single day, is to be a physical presence. They're an emotional thermometer for each of their students. They're an emotional barometer for the entire classroom. And those are things that are not going to be replaced, and the creative solutions that teachers come up with every day are not going to be replaced. But we can interact with a group. And it's in a sense by adding the robotics aspect, which is awareness of the physical environment. So we think ultimately the introduction is gonna save money. So one of our, like, just with something we've done, we created a very large amount of educational material, and we thought we're gonna print. Okay, it's all online, but we thought the main distribution is going to be print because you don't need a connection. We can get that anywhere in the country. But then we found the cost of printing is actually really terrible. We have so much content that being able to put this on some kind of device is already a cost savings. If that device is interactive and adds a learning dimension to that material, then it's actually a lot of things that you don't have to do anymore, even in a very low resource setting. So I think we actually the manufacturers of devices and the companies want us to spend a lot of money, okay, which is normal, and that pushes things forward. But I think like World Bank can be looking at how do we make these things really cheap so that a cost savings is actually makes things that we can't do today in countries like Mali start to make it possible.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Maxwell. So you're actually at the center of my screen, Maxwell. So keep the teacher perspective at the center of the conversation here. What are we missing? What question have I not asked you today, or what do you think is missing from this discussion that is really important from your perspective, either as you or as a teacher, as the groups of teachers you work with? I also note, thank you for the great comments in the chat. It's great to see some perspective.
We lost your mic.
Great.
Oh,
Mike, you're back on mute.
I don't know. I keep getting muted here. So I will give you the floor, Maxwell, in case I'm going to get muted again.
Yes. So
what question aren't we asking that we should be? What aren't we talking about that we should be?
one of the key questions we need to be asking ourselves is how do we prepare students to question AI, and not just to use it? Probably because we have issues around over-reliance on AI that might crop up, especially when students are not well guided. So are we preparing the teachers to effectively guide the learners on how to use AI effectively to avert scenarios where the students are now over-relying on AI? Are we modeling students to think critically and use AI as a tool, not just as a dependency to help them solve their assignments? We're also looking at who is designing this AI, whose voices are missing. I've already said that Michael has already alluded to the fact that human-centered design, when you are dealing with the designing of chatbots and all that. So these are questions that we must really be asking. The service providers, the tech guys behind the scenes in designing these AI tools, are they bringing everybody on board? Are they bringing in the voices of the teachers? Are they bringing in the voices of the policy makers? Are we talking about issues to do with data privacy for these learners? How confidential can that data be? Are our minors safe in using those details? And then issues to do with how do we assess work that learners have done using AI? Have we designed assessment models that are going now to incorporate AI as a tool for learning? Because we have learners out there, probably, let's say students, graduate students, for example, are doing research. If a learner uses or a student uses AI to do their research paper, are you going to penalize that student? Or are you going to have some framework of assessment to incorporate the AI as a resource in the work the learner has been able to present? Another key question that we need to be asking ourselves: what happens to the digital divide when the chatbot becomes common? Yeah, we have schools that do not have the basic infrastructure. And so if you're going to make AI and chatbots common, you are going to enhance more divide among those learners. So those are the key areas that we need to address as we go forward in forging policies and developing this frontier.
Thank you very much, Maxwell, for I think a very useful and helpful list of policies and challenges. One of the ways we like to end these community of interest sessions is to have an opportunity to post some specific challenges. Maybe we're posting specific opportunities to the community, either to get people interested or excited about something, an opportunity for partnership. I'd like to go over to Nick Shiner right now from Digital Promise. Nick, I think you have a challenge you'd like to share with the challenge or opportunity. I guess you'll be the decide of how to characterize it to this community. Over to you, Nick.
It can be both. Hi, everybody. My name is Nick Shiner. I'm the Director of Peer-to-Peer Professional Learning at Digital Promise. And what I wanted to share with you today is our AI Education Exchange that we have with Digital Promise in partnership with HP. It has a couple different components to it. And I actually want to go back to Mike's question about what are we not talking about? What are we not doing? And what's wonderful about the resources that we have here are that we're really trying to make sure that the global education community has everything that they need to enter conversations and play with artificial intelligence in ways that are relevant for them and give them the opportunity to explore, discuss, push back on ideas. And just some of the things I've seen in the chat, some of the questions that have come in, that's exactly what we want to see. We want to see people pushing ideas. So through our work with HP, we have the HP AI Teacher Academy. This is a free course that's hosted on edX. We have it in English, Japanese, and Italian, and we're hoping to push that out in other languages, hopefully in the future. That is a self-guided course that educators or folks interested in the intersection of AI and education can take. There's a, I believe, $5 certificated version of that course, and then there's also a free version where you can just complete a survey and we'll send you a letter of completion. I bring up that course, but if you remember, I said the name of my title is Director of Peer-to-Peer Professional Learning, and that's where our global community, the AI Education Exchange, comes into play. The course is wonderful. There's a lot of amazing content in there to get you started on thinking about how AI shows up in the classroom from elementary all the way up to 12th grade. We want you to talk with folks. We want to create a space and foster community and conversation around how AI is showing up all over the world, how folks are using it, how folks are questioning it, how folks are pushing it, how folks are safeguarding against it, all of those things. So Mike, as Mike said, the links will all be shared after this, but my challenge to you is engage with these. Push back on ideas where you think need to be pushed back on. Question things that you think need to be questioned. Challenge yourself to try things that maybe you didn't want to try before. The best way to learn about AI and to learn about the positives and the areas of growth and the dangers of it is for you to engage with it in a way for you to better understand it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share these resources with you. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook. We have a Discord community that it's all a part of our playful learning communities, which are all playful professional learning opportunities where we just encourage practitioners to explore and play with different technologies and share what's coming up for them. So again, thank you very much for the time at the end of this, and looking forward to continue to engage with all of you online.
Thank you very much, Nick. And I've swapped out my mic, so this I should be audible now again. I'd like to ask Alice as well to offer a challenge or an opportunity to the community.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Nick. That I love the framing of playful learning opportunities. I'll sign right up. Hi everyone, I'm Alice. I'm part of the AI Observatory team, and it was super interesting hearing this discussion today about the role of the teacher and some of the debates, some of the tensions, that there are really still so many sort of spaces where we don't see teachers being engaged in the changes that are happening around us. And so that's why the AI Observatory is launching a survey, which we're calling Teachers in the Loop. So also has a link there to the reference you made, Michael, of people in the loop, teachers in the loop. And really what this survey is about is gathering insight and teachers' perspectives about the direction of travel and the way that we might want to shape learning in the age of AI. So we'll be using the insight from this survey to identify some deeper engagements that we might take ourselves, but also recommendations for developers, for implementers, policymakers, and that are based on real needs of teachers, and really starting to do that engagement through this process. So we'd love your help to get this into the hands of those who can shape this moment. I'll share a link in the chat in a second. If you're a teacher, you can just sign up directly. It's a kind of register interest form. So you can just let us know that you're a teacher. And I suspect there's a bunch of people on the call who are not teachers, but will have access to networks of teachers or interact with different teachers in different ways. And so you can also register and let us know that, and we can send you some more information on how to share it with your networks. So I really do hope that you can help us get this into the hands of teachers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alice, and thank you, Nick, and thank you to everyone. You know, one of the things we've said a number of times, we'll be sharing out information, links to people, links to resources, links to opportunities to the folks who participated today afterwards. Hopefully, one of the ideas behind animating this community is to provide opportunities for people to collide with each other and meet each other, to hopefully do some interesting and useful things. You know, I'm supposed to wrap this up, but I'm not going to. I'd like to ask Hannah, what is one thing you're going to take away from this discussion today? Then I'm going to go to Vicky and Michael and then Maxwell as well. What do you take away from this hour that you've spent, you've taken away from the important things you should be doing to be with us this afternoon, I guess, where you are today?
I think I'm just struck by the breadth of things that we are all doing, not just the panelists, but as I'm seeing on the chat as people are mentioning what they're doing. So I think what I take away is a lot of hope, frankly, that we have good educators, good experts who are committed to using these new technologies in smart ways to help the students that we care for and care about. So, you know, yes, there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of risk, but I think we've got the right people working on these problems. So a lot of hope is what I'm taking away.
Thank you, Hannah. Vicky, I take a quick takeaway from you.
I would plus to Hannah's answer and just add on that we are the people who are going to write the future of this technology. And if we want it to be grounded in our work and our profession and the mission of driving learning, we're the ones who are going to have to get ourselves using the tools, testing them out, and talking loudly and frequently to others about what we want. And I'm taking that away from this.
Thank you, Michael. A very quick takeaway.
I really enjoyed, like many people on the chat, listening to Maxwell. And I think teachers at the center of this is really the key to doing a good and effective job. So I think listening to the teachers, and the other person I listen to is my 9-year-old daughter, who's taught me 90% of what I know about education.
Thank you, Michael. So we will not have the opportunity to listen to Michael's 9-year-old daughter this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. But Maxwell, we do have an opportunity to listen to you to end our conversation today.
Yeah, my key takeaway is probably having listened to every expert in the room. I think technology can never replace a teacher, but having technology in the hands of a good teacher is very transformational. So looking forward to see how we can embrace technology and AI in general to help bring out meaningful learning outcomes for the learners that we interact with.
Excellent. Thank you, Maxwell. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Nick and Alice. Thank you, Dean. Thank you, Verna, and everyone behind the scenes. Thanks to the World Bank, the EdTech Hub. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for sharing with us today, for offering insights, information, for disagreeing as well. We'll see you all in about 6 weeks for another one of these. Look for a related, well, series of related emails, but not too many of your inbox. First one will be a wrap up of this conversation today. Thank you so much. And onward and upwards. Cheers.